Hey there, Kip Davis here, and I would like to welcome you to my channel and to this special short conversation I had with world-renowned New Testament scholar Bart D. Ehrman. Bart Ehrman is the James A. Gray Distinguished Professor of New Testament Studies at UNC Chapel Hill. He is a leading figure in New Testament criticism and is widely published both in the academic and the popular literature. Before we begin our talk, I need to tell you about a unique opportunity to participate in a special 4-part all-day lecture series titled, Did the Christmas Story Really Happen?, that Professor Ehrman will be hosting this coming Sunday, 5th of December. A link to register for this exciting event, which will be complete with an open question and answer session, is included in the video description below. Be sure to check out this seminar and register early, but before you do, here is the short conversation I had with Professor Ehrman about the Dead Sea Scrolls, the New Testament, and the first century Mark fiasco. Enjoy. Professor Ehrman, it's an honor, it's a pleasure. I've been an admirer from afar for a long time, so I very much appreciate this opportunity to chat with you. So maybe let's start by getting the business at hand out of the way. You have an upcoming, very exciting looking webinar for this next week. Could you just tell us a little bit about that and where to find the information on how to register?
Yeah, no, I'm very excited about this. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be on Sunday, this Sunday, December 5th. It's going to be an all-day webinar. It's going to be I'm going to give 4 lectures back to back, lunch back to back, and after each lecture, I'm going to be taking questions from people who are participating. I'll answer as many questions as I can, and so it's going to be a full day of lecture and Q&A. The topic is timely. It's did the Christmas story really happen? Well, okay, that's an interesting question. And so the issue is you get the story of Jesus' birth in 2 of our Gospels in the New Testament. How do they compare with each other? Is there historical information in there? Is there legendary information in there? How do you decide what is what? And what about stories from outside the New Testament, legends and things that actually influence Christian views, and where do they come from? And are they historical? How do you know? And so it's going to be all that kind of stuff for the entire day on Sunday. And people can get to it. I suppose you'll probably be posting a link.
I'll provide a link in the description here.
BartDeEhrman.com/Christmas. So I hope people can come. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Fantastic. Yeah, it sounds very, very interesting, and it's a terrific opportunity for people to get a full day of university level education and information from a true expert. All right. So my audience is most interested in the insights that I can provide. I have a background in early Judaism and in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and I've been more recently making content on YouTube, trying to inform people about what's out there with regards to Second Temple Judaism. So this is where my audience's interest lies, and this, of course, intersects with the history of Christianity and with the New Testament in very interesting ways. So I wondered if maybe you could say a few things about how the discovery and the publication of the Dead Sea Scrolls has affected the field of New Testament studies, and maybe even your own work in textual criticism.
Yeah, no. So yeah, it's a great question, and your audience probably knows that there aren't any decidedly Christian documents among the Dead Sea Scrolls. They're Jewish documents, but they're significant. Of course, they're most significant for Second Temple Judaism, but they're also highly significant for early Christianity, because these scrolls were produced at about the same time and in about the same place that Jesus was living. And so they, among other things, they provide us incredibly helpful background into what was going on in Judaism in the day. For about the last probably 70 years, scholars have recognized that the Jewishness of Jesus is really important. And so the interesting thing historically in terms of scholarship on the New Testament is that back in 1906, Albert Schweitzer wrote his book, The Quest of the Historical Jesus, where he argued that almost everybody up to his own time, up to 1906, had misunderstood Jesus, because Jesus, in fact, was an apocalyptic prophet who adopted a view of Jewish apocalyptic view of things. And he wasn't the first to say this, but he's the one to popularize it. And it did become a popular view, but the confirmation of it came big time with the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls, because these are apocalyptic texts that were written about the same time and place, and they have views that are, they're not exactly like Jesus' views, but they're comparable to the views of Jesus and John the Baptist and other people in these Gospels, and it just shows this is the environment. And so it's helped us a lot in understanding, well, numerous things: what apocalyptic thought is, how biblical interpretation was happening at the time, how people were treating their scriptures, how they were copying their scriptures, and a variety of things that are just really essential for understanding early Christianity.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks for that. Your mention of Albert Schweitzer here just brought to my mind. I don't know. Did you ever see that show? I think it was on in the 90s, the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles.
No.
Are you aware of this?
Just once. Yeah.
Okay, it was a TV show. They actually did an episode where he met Albert Schweitzer, which I thought was incredible. But
that's great. Great.
Yeah. So, yeah, no, I was gonna, I think, it's they've been incredibly helpful, of course. I've seen some abuse as well of the scrolls with regards to what they tell us about the New Testament. This often happens with apologists. I've seen some suggest that they provide indications about the Aramaic origins of the Gospels. I don't know if you had anything to say about that, or
well, yeah, I mean, I think they some of the people who were deeply involved with the scrolls early on did, and even before the scrolls, people suspected that the Gospels of the New Testament may have been written in Aramaic, and some of the scholars involved with early on with the scrolls were leaning that direction. There are other reasons for being absolutely sure the Gospels were not written in Aramaic originally. Right. I'll just give you one example, which is that almost everyone today agrees. I'll put it like this: Matthew, Mark, and Luke agree with each other a lot, and they tell many of the same stories in the same sequence. But frequently, it's word for word the same. If these were translations for Aramaic, you couldn't get word for word agreements. I mean, if you see two translations of any book, you don't have entire paragraphs that are exactly translated the same. And so that means they're copying each other in Greek.
Yeah. Try convincing J. Warner Wallace of that, but
I know. You can't convince people that have made their minds up. I mean, if evidence doesn't matter, then evidence doesn't matter. No, you see you're appealing to it.
Yeah. So, I really wanted to. I'm gonna switch gears here, and if you'll indulge me, I made a documentary a number of months back about the first century Mark fiasco, but with specific attention to Christian apologist Josh McDowell and his involvement. Of course, you played a key role in what happened in the early going, and I was wondering if you would if you would mind taking some time and wouldn't mind reflecting on some of your firsthand experience with this. In particular, I'm like, I watched you in that debate or that discussion with Dan Wallace when he first announced the discovery of this fragment. And the whole time I was watching this, I was like, what's going through Professor Ehrman's head while this is happening? Can you talk to me about that?
Yeah, I'm happy to. Dan Wallace and I are friends. In fact,
Yeah.
just before I came on the show, I had an email exchange with him. So we've been friends for many, many years. Dan
Excellent.
Wallace is a professor. I don't know if your audience knows what this whole thing is or not.
They'll know some of it, but you go ahead.
Dan Wallace is a professor of New Testament at Dallas Theological Seminary, which is a very conservative evangelical, very, very conservative evangelical school. And he's an expert in ancient Greek manuscripts. And that was my original field of study as well. We have had 3 occasions to debate the topic of whether we can know what was originally in the New Testament. So the issue is that we don't, as with the Old Testament or any ancient book, we've got lots of copies of the New Testament in Greek, thousands of copies of the New Testament in Greek. These copies all disagree with each other. There are differences in wording, hundreds of thousands of differences among our surviving manuscripts. Most of those differences are insignificant. Scribes didn't spell words correctly, so they don't matter for anything. But there are some differences that really matter. And there are some that matter for how you interpret a verse or a passage or an entire book. And so there are some places where we don't know what the authors wrote. We just don't.
Yeah.
And if anybody says we do know, then why is that we all disagree about it if we know? So Dan Wallace would have debates about whether we can trust that we have the New Testament. And one of the things I point out is in my debates, I think maybe this is our third debate we had. My earlier 2 debates, I pointed out that with the Gospel of Mark, for example, Mark was probably written around the year 70, and our first fragmentary copy of Mark comes from around the year 200, 130 years later.
Yeah.
That copy has only portions of half of Mark's chapters. We don't have a full, complete copy of Mark until the end of the 4th century. So nearly 300 years we have to wait. During that time, scribes are copying it. And so whoever is copying this thing from the 4th century is copying a copy of the copy of the copy of the copy. And so it's nice that we have that 4th century thing. It's really great that we have that 4th century thing. But how do we know that it was what Mark originally wrote? So I was going through this whole thing again. And this time it was on my home turf. It was in Chapel Hill.
At UNC, yeah.
At UNC. And Dan Wallace then gets up for his talk, and he's a very good talker and a good debater. And he says, well, Bart, so you've seen, I'm not sure if you've even seen it. I just remember.
The sound is very poor.
I just remember this, but,
Yeah.
but he says something like, well, Bart, what would you say if I told you that we've discovered a 1st century copy of Mark? And my first thought was, I would say, wow, okay, great. I think he thought I'd be upset. No, my God, I'd love to have a 1st century copy of Mark, but I want to know about it. How large a copy is it? Is it the whole book? Or is it like a few verses? Or what is it? And is it how do you know it's from the 1st century? Who says it's from the 1st century? You say we discovered. Who discovered it? Where did they discover it? And how have you dated it? And has the dating been corroborated? And so, it's nice, but tell me about it. And he wouldn't tell me about it.
Were you surprised by how cryptic he was about all this?
I thought it was a little bit, I didn't think it was good.
Yeah.
You're in a public debate. He's trying to win a debate. And his point is now we have a 1st century copy of Mark, and the implication is so we know what Mark wrote. But he won't tell me anything.
I can't talk about it.
It turns out the thing was published years later, as you know, and it wasn't a 1st century copy of Mark. It was a little scrap that had a few lines on the front and the back that contained a few parts of a few verses. And it turns out it wasn't from the 1st century at all. It was from the 2nd or 3rd century. And so what's the point of bringing this up in a debate, especially if you won't even say anything about it? And so, as a way to score a point. It wasn't really a way to get information out there. And I just, I didn't much like that.
Yeah. So before he mentioned this 1st century Mark fragment, he also brought up a bunch of other fragments that have been recently discovered. I'm pretty sure he mentioned like another 2nd century Luke fragment. And in fact, the lead up to this 1st century Mark fragment was he introduced a bunch of these other New Testament fragments. I particularly remember him saying, we've got this new 2nd century Luke fragment, but this is not the oldest copy of the New Testament. I don't expect you to remember, but do you know, has anything like come of any of these other
Yeah,
fragments
I think they've been
in
published
them?
as well. They got published in
Okay.
they got published in the Oxyrhynchus Papyri collection, and it turned out that this announcement of his ended up leading to very serious things because
Yeah.
what this wasn't he wasn't at fault at all. The Dan had nothing to do with
No.
any of this, but these fragments had been acquired by the Museum of the Bible in Washington D.C., and it turns out they had been illegally purchased. They didn't know
Yeah.
that they were illegally purchased, but the Oxford scholar who was in charge of publishing these things, who did not own them, sold them for over $1 million to the Museum of the Bible, and it ended up being a really big deal about
It is
how antiquities are dealt with. And so,
just a crazy story.
crazy story.
Yeah. Well, this has been fantastic. Thank you very much for your time. I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah,
It was a
my
pleasure
pleasure.
once
My
again.
pleasure. Thanks so much.